Welcome to the Tiny Shifts podcast, episode number 1. I'm your host, Andy Nunn, and this is a podcast about small ideas that make a big impact. I just want to start by saying Happy New Year, everyone. Merry Christmas. I hope you all had a great time. And there'll be a lot of people today that are waking up New Year's Day with hopefully a bit of motivation to tackle all their goals. They've said they're going to, do this, do that, hit the gym, lose weight, all this sort of stuff that we tend to do in the new year. And this is something I've been fascinated for a very long time. And many of you listening to this podcast today would have read the book by James Clear. Now, the book Atomic Habits is one of the best-selling books of all time, which is extraordinary because it's not been out for very long. But I think it just highlights how much of a problem building good habits is. How much of us just struggle. How many of us struggle? We don't know how to create new habits, good habits, and we really struggle with some of the bad habits that we have. And I'm not here today to sort of give you a step-by-step system on how to build good habits or stop bad habits. I'm here for something else. This is something I've been really interested in, and it's more about the why. Okay? It's why do some people thrive when it comes to pressure, stress, habit formation, and why do other people just quit and shut down? Now, the people who thrive, yes, great. It's really awesome to hear some incredible stories about some people that achieve amazing things. And it's great to get that level of motivation. But I'm here to wonder, most of us don't. Okay, 90% of people will quit their goal or their habit by the end of January. By the time this podcast comes out, about 20% of you would have quit already. Now, that's extraordinary, and the reason I care about this so much is because, and the people who freeze, the people who remain stuck, the people who struggle, the ones who want to be healthier, they want to lose weight, they want to stop drinking as much, they want to go to the gym, they want to be able to talk to strangers. They don't know why the thing that they care about so much, whether it's, being a creator, they want to be a writer, they want to be a musician, some passion that they've had since they was a child. Why, if they care so much about it, can they not do it? Why do they freeze? Why do they shut down? And the reason I care so much about those people, and these are the people I'm talking about today, is because I was that person. I am that person. Okay. Now, why does that happen? Why does an artist not want to paint? Why does a singer not want to sing? Why is the human condition built that way? Fear. Or Stephen Pressfield would probably say in The War of Art, which is a fantastic book, it's resistance. Fear shows up as resistance. And often in its place, it can go quite quietly. Many of you right now aren't doing the thing that you want to pursue in your life. So this could be even a hobby on the side, you don't do enough of it, or exercise that you want to do that you enjoy. And the reason being is this resistance. It shows up in many different ways. You justify yourself psychologically. You go, I don't need to do that. It's too hard. You give yourself an excuse. You put it off into the future. And you say, someday I will achieve that goal. Well, someday is like that road to nowhere, basically. There's no way that you just don't end up doing it. It's just an excuse that you give yourself in that moment to make yourself feel a bit better about it. Because there's a sort of conflict, isn't there? It's a cognitive dissonance, I guess. A part of you loves the art, loves the music, loves exercising. But then there's another part of you that feels this discomfort, this dread, and this fear that comes up. How can that make sense? So your brain does what it's evolved to do over the years, and it just brushes it away. It just looks for something to hang on to that gives you a sort of form of comfort. And today it's often scrolling on your phone or watching cat videos or, you know, listening to podcasts like this. It can be endless things. We have these escapes, these armors. So when we feel this discomfort that we can sort of resort to, and these habits that form over time. So the goal that you want to achieve, the habits that you want to form in order to achieve the goal, the dream body, the dream life, in its place comes a different type of habit. The habit of distraction. You lose the ability to control your attention, to understand how your brain works. And this is where I hope these tiny shifts can come in, these tiny shifts, these tiny ideas. Because I think if you understand how your brain works, you can understand that fear and that discomfort doesn't have to control you. There's no way of getting rid of fear. You can't just eliminate it from your life. There's a process, though, to make it easier. There's ways to build habits. And that's the people I'm talking to today. Okay. Now, I believe that with some of the advice that I give you today, things that you can work through, things that you can work on, that you can change, because I lived there for years. Now, 10 years ago, I was a completely different person. In my 20s, most of my life, I ignored all my emotions. I didn't have the tools to deal with emotions. I didn't have the language to sort of understand how I felt. And the armor that I built up and the habits that I built up, rather than taking action on anything, were bad habits. I would want to escape as much as I could, whether that was drinking alcohol, that was trying to sort of transcend this experience that I was in. I built these habits around me to sort of protect myself from facing my own fears, from feeling that discomfort. I wanted to feel comfortable, and I didn't know how. So I've spent the last 10 years transforming myself from somebody who, couldn't run, didn't run anything. I struggled to run a couple of kilometers without feeling like I was having a heart attack. I weighed like 95 kilos. I just didn't exercise at all. It wasn't even part of my routine at all. Maybe once a year, I might pull myself out to try and do it. And then in the end, now I've run some of the biggest ultra marathons in the world. I ran over 300 kilometers in a week in September across Wales. Now, I don't say this to sort of impress you. It's more to just give you a bit of an understanding of where I came from and why this matters so much to me. It's the same with my magic business. That was something I pushed out of my way so much. Even when I quit my job to become a full-time magician, I was so scared. Coming to terms with being an introvert and trying to understand that was one of the most challenging experiences of my life. Understanding how to deal with fear and manage it in a way that enabled me to pursue my life as a performer and an entrepreneur, and standing on stage and networking and getting myself out there into the real world was one of the biggest challenges in the world. It felt it to me anyway. And they were habits that I had to form. They were understanding small ideas I had to understand about my own mind and how I approached the world and how I saw myself. And this is a thing that not only I've come to realize now with the way my job has changed over the last couple of years, that people were all dealing with. It's not just me. It's not just as performers. It's not just people with anxiety or ADHD or who are neurodivergent. It's everyday people. And this is why Atomic Habits is the biggest selling book in the world, because these are problems that we all have and we all face, and we don't know what to do. We don't know how to deal with it. We're overstimulated. We don't know how to control our attention. We don't know how to build habits that serve us. over the years, we've got technology that's enabled us to create habits that sort of take away our time, and time is all we have. Now, I'm not demonizing this technology. I'm using this technology right now in order to create what I do, and it's remarkable. But the problem is, if you don't have control and have the habits over the technology that you use, then these billion-dollar companies have the technology to control your attention. Okay, so if you don't learn to control it, they'll control it for you. So I will go into detail about some of these master habits to sort of regain attention in this podcast and over the next 4 weeks. So this is my plan. So this week is about the foundation of habits. I'm going to recap what James Clear goes over in Atomic Habits, because I think that's probably the best explanation. That book itself is remarkable. If you don't have it, I'd recommend you go and buy it, because it's the Bible of habits, basically. But there is some things that I think are a little bit missing, and things that I've learned over time. And specifically, it'll be more into detail about how do we show up when we fail? How do we plan for failure? Because let me just tell you, you are going to fail at your goal. You're going to fail at your task, whatever it is. And I know that because we all do. The statistics tell us. So how do you pick yourself up, okay, when you fail? And that's what we're going to go over today. I'm not going to teach you how to set goals or anything like that. That's, for a different type of podcast. I'm here to tell you and get you to understand your own mind when you're under pressure, when you feel fear, when you struggle, because that's when it matters. We can all take action. We can all motivate ourselves to do things. But how do you show up when you don't have motivation? Think about it. When you're lacking in motivation, how do you think you're going to show up? I know how I showed up. I just would press snooze. No, I'm not getting up to go for a run. I'm not going gym. What are you talking about? And I would be honest, that's completely fine. We're only human, okay? And you need to accept it. That's fine. It's fine to do that. We're not here to be perfect, okay? And we're going to go into more details. So anyway, let's recap. So first of all, I'm not here to talk about how to create habits. I'm going to go into detail what habits are, so we sort of get an understanding. But I'm not going to give you a step-by-step system. If you do want that, go to Atomic Habits, James Clear, and you're going to find out. But I will go into slight detail about what habits are and how they're formed. So what are habits? Habits aren't discipline. They're not the whole idea of, if you've got to think, I've got to do this, I need to focus, I need to do this, I need to do that. And if there's a process where you need to push yourself to do it and a lot of willpower, it's not really a habit formed yet. They're an automatic response. And basically, they're about automation. They're about, in this situation, I do this. And the way James Clear describes it is, there is a cue, and that cue is something that triggers you. So there's a trigger, and that often is the environment that you're in. So if you think about it, let's give an example. A habit that most of us should have, and if you don't have it, you need to sort it out. You just sort your life out. You've got bigger problems to solve than this podcast is ever going to be able to achieve it, and that is brushing your teeth. If you can't do that, then we'll have to sort it out. But anyway, so imagine you're going in to the bathroom, and you have the trigger. So you got trigger, which is the cue. Then you have craving, response, reward. Okay, so the cue is going into the bathroom or the sink. It'll be something around about that. That is the cue. It's the environment. It's the trigger that you have. Then you have the craving. So this is something that you want to change. So you'll get this urge where you'll go, I want to change that. Okay, so it'll be a cue, then you have craving, and you'll get this urge that will be like, I need to change this. Then you'll have a response. So the response is the behavior that you do. So this will be like, okay, I'm going to brush my teeth. And then you have the reward. So the reward from brushing your teeth is have minty, fresh breath. You're like, okay, and that's the reward. And that's the loops. And you do it over and over again. And during that time, over a period of time, it will become automatic. You don't have to think about brushing your teeth. Okay. So many people at this point say, okay, how long do I have to do it for? And the honest, it varies so much. The research is pretty crazy. Some of them are like 9 days, others 60 days, and it depends on the habit. Some of them will be 6 months that it's going to take you. I would say, and I listened to James Clear on a podcast recently, Diary of the CEO. I would say what he said was perfect. Habits are life. It's not something you just do for a few months and just expect it to be automatic. This is something that you need to do and you need to commit to, and you're going to adopt as part of your identity. With that in mind, identity-based habits are the key. So identity-based habits are sort of the key for forming new habits. These are the holy grail of habit formation. So to make it clear what our identity-based habit is, so if you think about it, I am a runner. That's the way I identify myself. I run. So I run. I've got to run. And that means running for me is pretty easy. But when I started, I wasn't fully a runner yet. I was, just trying to do 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers. And if I haven't been running every single day, then I'm not a runner yet. But I had to adopt that. What does a runner do? Okay, what does somebody who runs do? Now think about it. If I break that down, somebody who runs consistently. They show up. They put their running shoes on. They have running gear. They think about running the first thing they do in the morning. They read running books. So these are the sort of habits that I sort of adopt. What does somebody who meditates do? They read books about meditation. They have a meditation app. They do it daily. They likely have done silent retreats. And I've done all of these things. I adopted that sort of mindset. I wanted to be somebody who meditated. And because of these are behaviors I wanted to adopt. These are things that I did. So think about your habit right now. What is the identity that's attached to that? I'm a gym person. That might not be it. It might just be I'm somebody who exercises. And if you can identify with a group, like a running group, this is why things like CrossFit, I'm not a big fan of the CrossFit world, but it works so well because it becomes part of your identity. You can fit right into a group of people, you sort of like cult-like status. And because of that, it can motivate you in so many different ways. The problem with CrossFit is people tend to go in way too hard and end up injuring themselves really quickly. But if you can build up quite slowly and get mega fit from it, I don't know the stats, so I'd be lying, but I just assume that you'd get injured quite quickly, then it can be a great sort of tool than just going to the gym. That's why classes can be really good for the gym, because you can get that sort of idea of being somebody who does whatever the class is, whether it's Pilates or, you can be that person if you identify that with that. That's why team-based sports are so good as well. So often if there is a team-based sport that you want to do as a group or park run, you could be a park runner. And there's people that do that every week because you tick so many boxes. You get the exercise element. Every morning it's scheduled, it's free. There's a group of friends in the area and you have access to it. You can walk it. That's the thing. People do it with prams and people do walk it. I think probably the majority of park runners, when you go there, some of the big ones, they're walkers. So don't put too much pressure on yourself that you're going to be going there. Park run is a great way to sort of introduce yourself to runs. That wasn't a plan to put that in here, but now I think about it. If you want to run, I would recommend doing that. So identity-based habits are some of the most powerful habits that you can have. Okay, so that's just to clarify. So just to clarify with the habit loop again, we've got the cue is the environment, the situation you're in. You have the craving, the response, and then the reward. So let's think about the new year. Why do habits happen more the new year? Why do we get to the start of the year and go, new year, new me? I guess it's psychologically, it makes sense. If you think about it, a new year is like a new beginning. You can let go of that. That was the old me. Now this is the new me. There's less pressure. You've got 12 months. So that's space. You can easily plan it out. You've often overindulged towards the end of the year. So your motivation gets quite high because you've been drinking and eating so much. But the problem with it, and this is one of the flaws, is the motivation gets really high. So your dopamine levels are high, okay? Because there's a lot of novelty when it comes to this. And this is why 90% of them fail and 40% fail in the first week and all this sort of stuff. The statistics aren't great. So what can you do? Why do habits fail? I guess that's probably the best place to start. We rely way too much on motivation. So what happens is when there's a novelty of learning a new thing, okay, it's like a novel activity. Let's just use the gym because I'm pretty sure the gyms love January. Everyone joins and everyone, gets on board. The novelty of joining the gym is that it's exciting. You get the new gym gear. You go and get the card, they show you around. You've got everything, your dopamine levels, your anticipation to go can be quite exciting about it all. You get your gym plan, you start putting in your calendar, you start saying, I'm going to lose this much weight. This is what I'm going to look like when it comes to this month. And you make all these goals and the dopamine levels go up and up and up and up. Now, the dopamine molecule is your motivation and learning molecule. Okay. It's not technically your feel good molecule. That's what people say. It's not necessarily true. Dopamine is stimulated, released in the anticipation of a reward. So let me repeat that. Dopamine is released in the anticipation of a reward. So what does this mean? Well, often it's the excitement of a new task or the reward itself that releases dopamine. That's where you get the motivation from. So what happens when the motivation dies out and it becomes habitual or the novelty wears out? You're not as excited as much, maybe not habitual, because then you've exceeded, you've achieved, your goal. Well, it can be harder to motivate yourself when you're stressed, when you're tired, when you're feeling down. And getting to the gym can be really, really hard when you feel that way. And you stop going. And then you feel a bit ashamed because you missed it. And then you feel guilty and you're like, I can't show myself. I've let myself down. And then you miss a couple and then a few times. And before you know it, you're paying X amount every week. And to try and cancel, you have to pay another 4 weeks. And that's another stress. And they make you come in. There's a shame of that. It's, the cycle that you get stuck in just because you had the motivation the first week to join the gym is terrible. And I know this because I've done it. Okay, I am that person who's joined the gym and had to go through this process. So what can you do with this in mind? Okay, how can you set up a system that knows that this is what's going to happen? How can you plan for this? Because this is what's going to happen. Whether you like it or not, this is how it plays out. This is why 90% of people do it, because the goal that they have is I want to go to the gym or I want to lose weight. And the problem is the novelty is the only thing that's keeping them going at the beginning. They have, this motivation and the excitement that comes up with it all. And they're just not prepared for when that sort of dies out. Okay. So I'm going to give you a system that you can work through. And these are sort of some tools that you can take to sort of help you with this. How can you plan for failure? So when you're sitting down with your goal setting, and let's say you journal this or you write this down, what the best thing to do is to plan when you fail. What happens when I fail? How am I going to respond? Okay. So first of all, think of how you're going to feel. What are your thoughts that are going to come through? Okay. And think this out, write it out. When I fail, I'm going to think, oh, I'm terrible. I'm horrible. I'm not good at this. I knew I was never going to be able to do it. All these sorts of things. Then you need to be like, okay, that's fine. This is part of life. This happens. I'm only human. So have this talk with yourself and do this before it happens. So you're prepared and when you miss the gym that you're going to go and you're going to make it up the next day. And even better, plan for your worst day. There's a system that you can do is you need to create a minimum dose. Okay. Often one of the best things you can do is lower your expectations. I personally think going to the gym, if you're not someone who exercises a lot, is not a great way to start. So let's go back a few steps. If your identity goal is to be somebody who exercises, I would start with that before going to the gym. Building that habit before you go to the gym is much easier than starting with the gym. Okay. The pressure of the gym can help sometimes with the payments and stuff, but in the long run, you create so much friction and trying to get out just to do a bit of exercise. It often ends up being a very expensive direct debit that's really hard to get out of. So I would personally aim to make it really easy. I would have 3 different steps. Let's just say you're going to ignore my advice and you've joined the gym already, or you're going to join the gym. I would still have the identity of somebody who exercises. Okay, that's your goal. You're going to be somebody who exercises. So what does somebody who exercises do? I would make it, you want to do exercise at least 5 times a week. Okay, that to you might shock you. And the reason I'm saying 5 times is because you want it to become part of your identity. You want it to be something that you do more often than you don't. And I think doing 3 times a week, even though that's the ideal sort of amount, it's really hard to build that as a habit fast. And the reason I say 5 is because of the next step, is I lower the bar dramatically. You're going to have 3 different levels of your goal. Level number 1 is what's the minimum dose, the smallest possible dose that you have, and set this up like 1 minute or 5-minute exercises. So have a bunch of 1-minute workouts. This can be 10 press-ups, 10 sit-ups, 10 star jumps. That's your minimum dose, okay? And have a bunch of those different workouts that you're going to do. And these are the days where you just don't have the time. Life gets in the way. But before you jump in the shower to get to work because you've slept in, you do this, okay? Because you're somebody who exercises. Remember that, okay? Then have a medium dose. This is 20 minutes. You can achieve a lot exercise-wise in 20 minutes. So this is not going to the gym. This will be a run around the block. This will be a 20-minute bodyweight exercise workout, and you can do a lot in 20 minutes, okay? This can be a circuit where you have press-ups, star jumps, burpees, all these sorts of things. And there's a bunch of workouts online that you can do, and some of them are more intense than others, but these are ones that can sort of help. And look, if your goal isn't going to the gym, I know I've said the gym a lot, it's the most popular, replace it with whatever it is. If it's writing, you want to journal every morning, 3 pages, that's what you've set your limit at. Way too high. So I would have step number 1 for my goal would literally be writing the date. That's all I have. Step number 1 is write the date. Middle goal would be to write 3 lines. Okay. And then maybe my big goal would be like 1 page. Okay. And there are 3 different levels, but they're things that I'm going to do every single morning. So let's get back to exercise. So once you've got that and you've created your 3 different levels, then link it to something else. Okay. So before the shower in the morning, I do this. Before I have my coffee in the morning, I exercise. Before I have a coffee in the morning, and this is called habit stacking. Now, if you're like me and you can't function in your day without a cup of coffee, your coffee in the morning is like a big reward. Okay. And I love my coffee. And so if I say to myself, I'm going to give myself that reward. Once I've done this enables me to sort of take action on that habit, and you're linking it to another habit. So it's before I drink my coffee, I exercise. Before I drink my coffee, I exercise. So you've stacked it on another habit, and replace coffee with whatever you want it to be. Before I lift up my phone and check my emails, I exercise. Before I read the news, I exercise. Something you know that you do every single morning. Okay. It can be before I eat breakfast, I exercise. Okay. It's completely fine to do a workout up to about an hour. Even if you're quite a fit person, 2 hours without eating food in the morning. Your glycogen stores in your muscles are completely going to be topped up from the night before, as long as you're not on a super low carb diet. And even if you are, you're probably adapted and you're fat adapted by this point. Anyway, going off topic a little bit, but that's what you do. So let's just go over that again. Lower the bar. Create 3 different systems in order to make it as easy as possible. Then stack it to an existing habit, okay? That's a reward, something that you do that gives you some sort of, and that sort of hacks that system of the dopamine, okay, when I was talking about this earlier on. Those 2 alone are going to make a massive, massive impact in your life or in your sort of habit formation. Then what happens when you fail? So plan for this. Okay. So when I miss a day, which is inevitable, even these 1 minute, you're going to miss a day, is that you're going to schedule it for the next day. Okay. You're not going to miss it twice in a row. You're going to make sure that you do it and you're going to make time for it. And if that means that you have to get up 20 minutes earlier, just do it. Just get in there and get your minimum dose in, because you're somebody who exercises. Okay. Whatever that is, you're somebody who does that. Now, master habits. So what are master habits? These are habits that help in all other areas of your life. So for instance, I have a morning activation habit. So my morning activation habit is pretty simple. When I unplug my phone from the charger, my phone, and I'll put this up on the screen for people watching, activates a shortcut that goes through a sort of process that reminds me of my cleaning that I need to do, my chores, reminds me of my life goals that I have, and then gives me my philosophy. I call it the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 system. 2 questions, 3 habits that I'm working on, and 1 core purpose. And I read that every single morning. As soon as my phone, that's what comes up on the screen, and you'll be able to see that. Finally, it gives me my 3 main tasks for the day. I fill them in and I break it down to what's the first action, first step that I need to take in order to achieve that task. Once I've done that, it adds it to my reminders in Apple and then adds it to my calendar. And then I tick them off and I work through them throughout the day. This happens every morning. Every morning I unplug my phone, that comes up, and I go through the process. It's completely free. I created it using Apple shortcuts. I'm going to include it at the end of this podcast. Please share it. This is a system that what I mean is a master habit system. It helps all areas of my life. It means before, and I attach this to drinking coffee. So before I drink coffee, I have to do this. Then I have to meditate and I write in my journal. And I can do all 3 of these in less than 10 minutes. Okay. My ideal time is about 30. So I do 10 minutes meditation. I journal for about 10 minutes, and this system takes about 10 minutes. But if I answer it quickly and I skip through the reading processes, I can do that in about 2 minutes, meditate in 2 minutes, and I can just write the date for my journaling practice. And this is a big transformation. It helps in all other areas of my life. It means I work towards my goals. I remind myself what the purpose that I have, the habits that I'm forming, why I'm forming it. And it really just aligns my life in that way. And it's helped in so many different ways in my life. So I'll share that with you, completely free. Feel free to share it with anyone else. And if you want some more help in creating your own shortcuts, feel free to reach out. I've got plenty of them that will really help in your life. So to recap, I know this was quite a lot of information to take in, and thank you for this. Over the next 4 weeks, I'm going to work on I'm going to go into a bit more detail about fear-based habits. Why don't we take action on the things that matter? Okay. Go into a lot more detail with that. I'm also going to go into detail about mindfulness. How do we ground ourselves? And I have a system called the GO method. This is something I teach on stage to a lot of my clients or the keynotes that I'm doing. And this GO method, it helps you take action towards your goals. And these can be goals that you're scared of trying to do, whether that's talking to strangers, speaking up for yourself, asking the boss, doing exercise, anything like this that creates a sort of dissonance or a sort of fear or resistance that you might get, this is going to help you overcome that. And that's going to be, I'm going to dedicate a whole podcast to that sort of one idea. And then obviously mindfulness and everything like this is going to be the overarching moment of this. How do you stay present and have clarity around your actions and your attention? So my commitment to you is I'm entering the busiest period of my life. I'm about to become a dad in the next few weeks. So when I decided to create the habit of creating a podcast, I decided that because of my identity, I'm a speaker now, that speakers have podcasts, speakers write books, speakers do this. And, I stand on stage and I deliver these ideas that I'm talking about. And I decided that I was going to dedicate it. Even though I'm having a child, I'm training for a 100-mile race in 4 months' time. I'm moving into a new house. There's a lot I'm taking on. My commitment is to release a podcast every single week. Now, my minimum dose is only 5 minutes. And I promise you, there will be 5-minute podcasts that come into your feed. But please, 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 I ask you to, if you can, please subscribe to this. Share this with anybody who you think will need this, who you know is trying to achieve a goal, trying to break a habit. Share this with them, because I promise that the more people we can share this with, the more people we can reach, the more I'm committed to sort of helping. I'm so committed to reaching as many people. Feel free to message me if you're working on a goal. Let me know the sort of goals and the things you're trying to work on, whether it's exercise, diet, or anything like this. And I'll do my best to try and help you as much as possible. Okay. I've been there. I've struggled through so many different things, which I will go into more detail over the next few weeks. My own personal journey into detail. I've struggled with, I'm neurodivergent. It's something I didn't get diagnosed with until I was an adult. I've gone through addiction and all these sort of challenges that I've gone through as a person have enabled me to learn so much. And if I can help anyone who's struggling right now with trying to sort of change the way they see themselves and see the world around them, if I can just help one person, I'll be happy. So please, please share it. Let me know topics that you want. I've got a schedule for the next 12 months. But if there's anything you really want to hear about, please reach out to me. But like I say, every week I'll be in your feed. These short episodes will sometimes even be recaps. But what's coming this year is very, very exciting. Everything's on mindset. Obviously, we've got habits right now. There'll be communication, ADHD. If you're someone who struggles, even if you don't have ADHD, we all have symptoms of ADHD now. The inability to pay attention, anxiety, mental health, addiction. Everything I'll be talking about, illusions. I'll be telling personal stories about my experiences on stage, how this Tiny Shifts company that I've founded is going to be changing over the next year. I have no doubt that what I'm starting today will be completely different in 12 months' time. And thank you so much if you made it to the end. Please, again, click subscribe. Please leave a review. All of this helps. I've heard it on every podcast that I've listened to for the last, 10 years of listening to podcasts. And I'll be in the show notes. I will release the link to the shortcut with a template. And I'll also put a worksheet in there as well. And this worksheet will enable you to plan for failure, because you will fail at your goals. I just want to leave on that positive moment, that positive thought. But yeah, have a great new year. Thank you again, and all the best.